Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Okay, we've talked about your family's financial life. What does it take to help you get out of debt, manage money? Of course, part of what our life is to go to school, get educated. In today's world, student loans seem to be a reality, at least for many Americans that are attending college these days. The only way to be able to afford the costs that are associated with going to school is taking out a student loan. Now, in the world of college payment and making sure we're paying on time, there's multiple sources of income. Number one, I want you to always save if you can for your families when it comes to college and making sure those costs are there. But here's the other part of it. You might qualify for scholarships. We've talked about that in the past. It is never too late. There are scholarships that have deadlines that are the first of the year, that are the 15th of February and the 1st of September, all the way throughout the year. There's some wonderful websites these days. Early on, we used to talk about the websites because they were rare, hard to find. A lot of people didn't know they existed. Today, they're everywhere. There are tons of scholarship websites. Just go to your search engine, type in scholarships. I don't want to talk about that as much because everybody kind of knows about that. But what do you do when it comes to student loans? When you have a late student loan, what are some of the things that you can do in order to make sure that you're paying on time, in order to ensure that you don't get into trouble? There's one of the 40, if you are one of the 40 million consumers with student loans, that's more than 10% of Americans. Can you imagine that for just a second? It's about 12.5% to be exact, of Americans have a student loan. I mean, we're talking man, woman, and children here. Why is it that you thought it was a good idea to do something, in my opinion, not very well thought out? Now you might say, oh, Arif, you don't understand. Look, the bottom line is student loans and going to school and getting that degree is so 1990s. Oh, but Arif, today, look, if everybody has a college degree, they are not as important. You understand that? So it used to be that high school, oh, he went to the 8th grade. Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. But she went to college. Oh, that's good. High school diploma used to mean something. And then suddenly, bachelor's degree. Wow, they have a bachelor's. That's a big deal. And then it was a master's degree. Oh, it must be a master's. That's the thing. Oh, now what's next? A PhD? Everybody's going to walk around and it's the favorite Chevy Chase movie where he goes, doctor, 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 doctor. So I'm not saying education is bad. I think it's a very important part of your life. But what I am saying is if you think college has something to do with success, financial or otherwise, you're wrong. It has to do with you expanding your knowledge. And even today, that's not the only place you can go to get it. Today, the internet is full of classes you can take that are concentrated, that are specific. Learning art history on something that you may never, ever use again so that you can get a degree in political studies. Does that matter? I don't know. Maybe. If you had a question about art history, do you go back to your minds? Go to the textbooks that are on your shelves? Or go to the internet to find the answer? Right? It used to be, I think I had the books until I think my last move where I would have just shelves of books from my old math classes and my old history classes. Today, those books are worthless, really. I mean, they're nice if you collect antiques, but for most people, it's not about that anymore, is it? So, you know how I stand when it comes, or where I stand when it comes to student loans. I think a lot of people took student loans for a degree in which their rate of return, their return on investment is not going to be what they thought it was, and they're stuck. Do I think college is bad? Of course not. I think you should learn for a lifetime. But be very careful when you make a decision for you or your family, for your husband or wife or your kids, to take money from your family budget or, believe it or not, from the future of your young student's life and give it towards a student loan. I just don't think that's the answer for most people. That burden is enormous. Now, what happens when it comes to the next step of your life, which is jumping into a student loan? Because it's easy to enroll in a program. In fact, we had one particular physician who has over $700,000 in student loans. $700,000. Now, that's nice. He's a physician. It's great. But what do you earn? What do you earn when you're a physician? $15,000 a month? Whoa, that's great. About a third of that goes away to taxes, about maybe $6,000. So now you're about $9,000 a month. Okay, hey, that's still not bad. About $7,000 goes to your student loans. Wait a second. You're right back at a Walmart manager's job, income. How about that? 10, 12 years of your life so that you can earn the same. Oh, but Arif, it goes up. There's a lot more money that you could earn over your lifetime. True. But you start off at, age 30, 35, or 40 by the time you really begin to make any real money because, you go to school, you have to take classes, you have to go and pay your dues across society. You do things where you're standing and working hard. And then surprise. So be very careful. I love the fact that people are getting educated. I love the fact that school and college is available to people more and more these days. But what do you do when you mess up? When your job doesn't pay? When you can't afford the payment for a student loan? Or you just got a new job, but it isn't what you thought, and you still have other bills. Of course, you have to eat, food, shelter, clothing. Those things matter. Imagine that. Wow. What do you do? So there's something called deferment. Let me get into that here because it's a period of time in which the repayment of your student loan principal and interest is temporarily delayed. Now, it happens a lot when people graduate. They give them 6 months to get started, 6 months to lay the foundation of their life. Important. No big deal. We get that. You can also go into deferment at later times in your life. Did you know that? You can ask for a deferment if you get laid off again or if you have another position, but you have to be involved a little bit in that because that delay period of time doesn't always last forever. So a forbearance comes into play. What is a forbearance? You may be able to stop making payments or even reduce your monthly payment for up to 12 months. Now, the interest continues to accrue. That doesn't change. So if you missed a student loan payment, it will impact your credit. And as a student loan payment, if it's not made, who collects it? Is it your local bank? Is it a guy named Lenny with a baseball bat? Or is it the IRS? It's worse than both of those combined. It's the IRS. They come knocking on your door. They cancel. Did you know they go after your licenses? If you have a contractor license or a nursing license, if you're somebody who has a driver's license, a chiropractic license, an architectural license. Do you know that if you don't pay, the IRS cancels those or suspends those and terminate? Wait, that's the source of income. How am I supposed to eat dinner and at the same time not be at what? That's how they do it. So be very careful that if the process of what you're doing, you get in bed with the devil, if you will. I don't know, I guess it is. Look at what the IRS did to the conservative Tea Party groups. You don't have to agree with them, but is free speech under fire? Yeah. And when you have a very militant presidential administration and a group of people that decided to punish those and to use the Justice Department and the IRS to go after you, that goes to show you the power. You can research it. It's everywhere now. And it goes to show you the power of the IRS and why that is important because you just got into bed with them. And you might think, oh yeah, I don't like those Tea Party people. Well, today that's the administration is in power, is the one that doesn't like the Tea Party. Well, what if the Tea Party gets into power? You think that you just gave them the power. And today it's your guy that's in power, so you like it. But tomorrow, if it isn't your guy in power, you don't like it. You have to be very careful. If you're giving the government or people in charge, if you give them power, life changes quickly, doesn't it? You have to be very careful if you're going to be walking into that danger zone. Give the power to somebody, you may go backwards. So what do you do? If you're going to forbear these loans, how do you decide? Well, what's the difference between deferment and forbearance? Well, we went over it as well. Let's walk through that again. The payment of your student loan and principal is temporary delayed. That means in the deferment, principal and interest is delayed. A forbearance says I don't have to make the payment, but the principal and interest continue to accrue. And so what do we do when it comes to the difference between the two? Well, as a college graduate, you typically have 6 months grace period. We talked about that. After graduation, before your first loan payment is due. After that, now what? If you're unemployed, you can explore other repayment options. You can now begin to defer it. You can say, now I'm going to defer it for an additional up to 3 years. That's the total amount, period. What do you do when you're backwards, when your back's against the wall? So I want you to be very careful. Here's what I think is one of the best ways to go about this. You may have got yourself into trouble. You may quietly talk and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe what I did. A lot of people get into that conversation where they feel like they were misled that their degree was going to give them something that it just didn't do. So, what is that process? I want you to look at the income-based repayment option. Okay, the income-based repayment, IBR. The IBR allows you an option to take your income, you put it into a formula, and then the IRS charges you a percentage. It's a formula based on how many kids are in your family, where do you live. So there's food, shelter, clothing that's put in there. And then basically take your expenses out. Then what's left, that's the formula that they put together. And they say, okay, you can afford $213 a month. Now you might say, well, the interest alone, my student loan payment is $750 a month. The interest is $250 a month. So you're supposed to pay $750. The interest is, let's say, $250. And wait a second, why does the income-based repayment plan say that I'm only paying $213 a month? Because that is the formula. If you make those payments on time, and you do so for 20 or 25 years, I'll get to the other program in a minute. Then after that period of time, whatever's left, maybe it's grown in value, maybe you never really paid even the interest that it was accruing, it doesn't matter. Then whatever's left is forgiven by the US government, i.e. your taxpayers. So I don't care where you're working, if you're working at Starbucks, if you're working at Allstate, if you're working at Walmart, you need to thank the person in front of you in line who comes to see you or spend money, because they're the ones that paid for your student loan interest. They're the ones that laid out their tax dollars so that you could go to college. So you better be grateful to those around you. It's much different than just going, I deserve, the government paid. Who's the government? Do you think John Boehner? Do you think Paul Ryan? President Obama? Nancy Pelosi? Who do you think is the government? It's none of those people. Those folks are fine. Their kids will never pay to go to college beyond a very small amount. They'll never take out student loans. Those kids, those people, their children will have wonderful vacations, great lives. It's the other taxpayers, the middle class people that are working, who go to work, pay some of their taxes so that you can party on Friday. I mean, so that you could actually go to school, right? So the student loans, folks, doesn't just come from air. I know that politically sometimes people think that. They're like, oh, it's the government. It is not. It is individuals. All right, so what do? You got a student loan deferment. You can wait. The government pays your interest. Basically, it just doesn't accrue. They take it from their left pocket, drop it into the right pocket, and they call it paid. Can you say Social Security? Very similar to how they are managing that. Now, private lenders are different. President Obama outlawed private lenders. In other words, there are no private lenders anymore that are allowed to issue new loans in the student loan arena. Did you know that? What? Yeah. In a capitalist society, if a company says, I want to invest in you, Joe, I want to invest in you, Mary, I'm going to give you money so that you can attend UC whatever or Cal State whatever. Nope, sorry. Isn't that weird? Don't you think that's a little weird? Of course, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's it. That's the bottom line. You want to go to a private school and a private institution wants to give you money and lend it to you? Sorry, you can't do that. Tough luck. What? Yep, that's the way it goes. Now, if you have a private loan, maybe you're in your 30s or 40s, private lenders have different terms and conditions for the deferment, but typically either your interest will accumulate and then be added to the back end, or sometimes you still have to make interest-only payments. You might be stuck in that scenario where there's a portion of it there's a little bit of a plan. But can you still request forbearance? Yes, you can. It's usually limited to a period of time. Remember how I said 3 years is the ultimate, but it's 1 year increments. Don't forget that. You don't want to go much more than that. And if you're going to get that 1 year period of time to borrow, that's the time you buckle down. You get a second or a third job. I had 3 jobs, right? That's what you do. I remember trying to go to my dad and mom asking for money for college. They said, well, you know what? We didn't quite save that much for you. Okay, well, but you'll always have a place to live. You'll always have food. I said, great, that's all I need. The rest is I'm going to do what I can. It's what you do. Ideally, you're going to want to just repay the student loans as quickly as you can. Deferring a government loan is your best option because the interest will be paid for by the government, other taxpayers. But in the worst case scenario, remember this. If you're going to defer it and the interest is going to be added to the back end, all it's doing is delaying the pain, and you're going to have to find some way, somehow, to pay that back. The interest on it, I don't know, 6%. In today's market, it's pretty high. In the big scheme of things, over the next 25 or 30 years, it's actually quite low. But it's an unsecured loan, right? Your student loans, what are they going to... I'm going to repossess your diploma, sir. Take that knowledge right out of your head. Nothing for you unless you pay back. There's nothing they can do. So when they transferred it to the IRS, suddenly it hits your credit. Suddenly it becomes this institution that can go after you, and they've done it. We've seen it. So be very careful when you get in bed with the devil. We're going to be back in just a minute as we continue with some of the student loan ideas and the options and the plans and things you can do as you're planning for 2016, as we're starting to see. You have to send your intent off to certain colleges. You have to start looking. I know friends that are out there shopping, if you will, taking weekend trips, looking at schools and seeing what their senior in high school has to offer and what the colleges have to offer them. We'll cover that and a whole lot more when we continue. Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We'll be right back.